I tell you that none of us are really suffering. We're just going through through the multiple different stages of development. And that development is key to who you are. When you're able to understand the difference between wisdom, discernment, and trust. See, when I say I trust you, God, I say that from my soul. And even though I have been in moments when I said I trust you, God, and my life fell apart when I say them words, that didn't mean that I took away my trust from God. Absolutely not. In fact, it's in those moments when you have to come closer to God, have to continue to trust God, even if you don't pray, even if you don't know how to pray, because sometimes you can experience so much pain, or you can feel it. See, pain, it's in your mind. It attacks the mind. It attacks the heart. And when your mind is attacked, it attacks your body. So you can feel that you're in so much pain, that you're filled with anxiety, that you can't breathe, right? But it's in the moments that you just have to call out to God. And however you do it, you may just say, Jehovah, Jesus, dear God, I love you, God. You may even just say the prayer that's in the Bible, thy Father who art in heaven, or the serenity prayer. Grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change. See, the words doesn't matter when you're talking to God. And I believe that a lot of us don't talk to God because we don't know how to talk to God. But when you realize that God is always listening, he's studying the heart, he's studying the mind, he's constantly watching, healing, and protecting us. Because as God studies the heart and the mind, he realizes that it's the mind and the heart. But see, the mind and the heart, it must stay separate. It has to stay separated, because your heart can want to do everything for everyone, but your mind knows that your mind is over the issue that you are currently being faced with. But if you allow what you're experiencing to dominate your mind, it's in that moment where you may become temporarily defeated. Because, see, that's the trickery of the enemy, to get in and confuse your mind. So at that point, that's when that temporary defeat begins to set in, and it can make your heart become very wayward. That's that lukewarm energy that they speak about in the Bible. Now, I personally don't believe that the lukewarm mean decency. It doesn't mean that we're perfect, either you're hot or cold. No, our body goes hot and cold. We have multiple different temperaments and temperatures that we have. And you know, and you trust, and you believe, God, I trust you. There's no waywardness in that. The mind may tell you to do this, or, because see, the mind is so powerful, it can concoct multiple different scenarios. And those scenarios, once they are concocted, they can birth more. It's what you feed it. If you're only focusing on this or focusing on that, it can confuse your heart. But when they say make a mind over heart decision, in most instances, the heart and the mind is not going to ever be on the same page, because the heart is the keys to the soul. The eyeballs is the windows of your soul. So when you have that vision of discernment, when you are able to see from a spiritual level and not solely from a carnal level, you realize the importance of keeping the two separate. God said that I study the hearts and the minds of the people, because he knows that the heart and the mind, it needs to be separated. He understands that you can have a broken heart, but you still have to get up and provide for your family. You still have to show up to work. You have to show up in a community. You have to continue to be in service of this life that we were blessed with. Because see, life is a blessing. And regardless regardless of where you came from and how narrow that road was for you, or the door was for you to walk through of opportunity, it doesn't mean that you aren't placed in a level of service. See, just living is operating into a service-based arena. And what we are in service to is the Most High. See, he knows, I'm telling you, when you get to looking at parables, then the words and how words are parables in itself, the word is a parable, because each word has its individual definition. You understand that we are incarnated to be in service, in some form of arena of service. So when we hear an eye for an eye, that doesn't mean that you are a doormat. When you're able to emphasize with someone, see, that's when you're coming from the heart space. That's that heart space. That's that agape love. Because the agape love says that's that broken heart. That's that broken spirit. Because when your heart is broken, your spirit is wounded. Your spirit is broken. And that's when God comes closer to us. Okay? That's when God is right there for us, because you may not know the words. You may say, God broke my heart because he allowed something to happen to you, because you went through. I have to go through this trial. God, you allowed this trial to break my heart. But I trust you, God. I don't know a word to say to you right now, God, because I am devastated, because my heart is broken. But my mind knows that I have to get up, because a wise man falls 7 times, but get back up, right? But I know my mind tells me that I must get up and take another step. God, I trust you. God, I'm devastated. I don't even know how to pray to you right now, but I trust you. See, that's how we avoid from getting into that lukewarm energy. The lukewarm is the heart, because we allow the heart to go cold. When your heart get broken, it's not intended to go cold. It's intended for you to draw closer. When you don't understand, you don't have the understanding, it places us back to Genesis with Adam and Eve, the good and evil. See, everything isn't intended for us to understand. Things may happen. You may lose people, and that loss is so many different faces of loss. See, you can lose an individual, you can lose a job, you can have an abortion, you can have a miscarriage, you can have a child adopted, you can lose a family member, a significant other, a spouse. Comparison is not the same as competition. See, we compare our pain, our struggles, our bank accounts, our looks. We're constantly comparing ourselves to someone else. That places us in an arena to compete with someone. See, even though life may place us in competitive fields, when you look at sports, for example, sports is a perfect example of competition. And, based upon your skill set, you will compete. See, when you look at self, it's comparable to a tree and its fruit. So now we're going to go to Matthew chapter 7, verse 15. Watch out for false prophets. They come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly they are ferocious wolves. See, that's where you get to that hypocrisy, that attack. Because if you think about a hypocrite is gluttonous. They're very judgmental, and they have taken upon the role of God. See, God says that he loves each and every one of us, that he forgives us, that he protects us, that he guides us, that he restores us, that he strengthens us, that he anoints us, that he protects and creates our path for us so that we don't stumble into the trap of the enemy. You have some false prophets who will come in and tell you that God don't love you. They will speak curses over your life. They will judge you by how you look. They will judge you by how you're dressed. They will judge you based upon your sexual orientation, your creed. They will judge you based upon your social class. These false prophets, they are a reflection of why a lot of people are intimidated to commune in groups, in gatherings. They are intimidated to join a church or to find a church home because it's that judgment, that hypocrisy that we are encouraged not to have. See, when we have these eyes of discernment, we know that nobody is perfect but God. We know that even though we aim to remove certain habits and create new systems in our life, we still will never be perfect. We're human. We're always going to fall under the category of being a human, which means that we're not going to be perfect. Like this little hair that's sticking up right here and it's not laying down. You see? So when you think about things like that, okay, and you realize that we are intended to fall. A wise man shall fall 7 times, but he get back up. See, the number 7 is a powerful number right there. That's numbers associated with the ascended master. You rest on the 7th day. That's the Sabbath day where, you take time to commune with the Most High. That's that moment when you understand that perfection is only in the Most High, because even the Most High knows that He created us in His likeness, which means that He knew we wasn't going to be perfect. But that's what makes Him perfect, because as children, we're always going to believe that our parents is just the best people ever. We're going to be in love. That's our first love. Our parents is who we look to for guidance, for security, for trust, for love. And, that's the eyes. Those are the spiritual eyes that we are given. That's the head over heart decision. That's where that love comes from, our heart. But our mind is, it's the sin that lives in us. It's the ingestion. It's what are you watching? What are you consuming? What is your diet? What is the predominant part of your day revolved around? What are you consuming in your body? Because that's what shapes the mind. That's what forms the mind. Now, I just want to encourage y'all to allow yourself the ability to separate the head and the heart and understand that they are not intended to be the same. They're not intended to always be on the same page, because when that heart is in total alignment with your mind, now you're lukewarm. How can you utilize your ability to see from a spiritual perspective? That means that you will operate and act out of impulse. Thoughts of the heart, they travel to the mind and they move through the tongue. Words have the ability to curse and they have the ability to heal. So if your heart is cold and your mind is wrapped with the weeds of the enemy, of the serpent, because remember, trickery comes from the enemy. That's where you have these acts of violence. You start to create a sociopath. You have increased levels of attacks. You have bullies. That's because they have aligned. And that's that wayward spirit that as children of God, we're encouraged to stay away from that lukewarm energy. Right? So tell me your thoughts on this topic. And yeah, it was a pleasure talking to y'all. And I will tune back in with y'all soon.